Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph NGUTE, has recalled that the wearing of masks in public places, the prohibition of gatherings of more than 50 persons, and the suspension of missions abroad for public and para-public personnel shall be enforced in the country to prevent a re-escalation of COVID-19 transmission. The PM also indicated steps are being taken to acquire COVID-19 vaccines to protect the population and shall be administered on voluntary basis when the time comes. Here is the complete declaration made by the Prime Minister and Head of Government, Dr. Joseph NGUTE.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by saying that this statement is in compliance with the instructions of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya. As you are probably aware, within the framework of the implementation of government's response strategy, on 17th March 2020, the head of state issued a series of restrictive measures aimed at limiting the spread of COVID-19 in our country. Although these restrictions were stringent, they were beneficial. The actions implemented by government helped to curb the spread of the pandemic in our country and to save lives. To ease patient care, isolation units for COVID-19 infected persons and specialized treatment centers were opened. The control of the pandemic led the President of the Republic to decide on the gradual easing of certain restrictive measures. As a result, on 30 April 2020, bars, restaurants, and leisure facilities were allowed to open after 6 p.m. Pupils and students in examination classes in primary and secondary education, as well as university students, learners in vocational centers and professional schools, were able to resume in-person classes from 1st June 2020. This decision enabled them to complete the 2019-2020 school and academic year and to continue their training for the current 2020-2021 year. Moreover, considering the effects of this pandemic on the national economic and social fabric, the head of state decided to grant facilities to companies in difficulty and to the most modest households. The application of these measures helped to lay the groundwork for our economic recovery and to regain a certain social balance in the face of this harmful disease. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the efforts made to curb the spread of COVID-19 in our country, there has been a resurgence of the pandemic in many of our cities in recent weeks. Updated statistics show that 34,887 patients have already been cured of this disease since it first appeared in our country. However, in the space of 1 week, more than 3,000 new cases were recorded, bringing the overall number of people testing positive for COVID-19 to 38,988. Over the same period, that is 1 week, 37 patients died as a result of this disease, bringing the total number of deaths to 588. There is every reason to believe that the deterioration in the epidemiological situation that we are observing today is largely due to the laxity in the application of safety measures and to the failure to comply with the restrictive measures taken on 17 March 2020, some of which are still in force. Indeed, a very large majority of our compatriots gather carelessly in public or private spaces, disregarding the rules of social distancing and without taking into account the limit of 50 people for any gathering. Many no longer even wear masks, which is compulsory in all public places. Some even continue to think that COVID-19 is a pure invention or that it exists only in other countries. Such behavior is irresponsible and favors the spread of the virus, especially at a time when many variants have been discovered in certain countries. This disease is real. It continues to wreak havoc among our loved ones and strikes brutally at people with comorbidity. In this context, government has an obligation to protect each and every one of its citizens, despite the reluctance or denial of the reality of this disease by some of our compatriots. I therefore seize this opportunity to remind everyone that the measures taken on 17th March 2020, which were not expressly lifted by the President of the Republic, are and remain in force. They include the prohibition of gatherings of more than 50 people throughout the national territory, working remotely and using electronic to protect itself against COVID-19 for a return to normalcy, while waiting for the outcome of ongoing steps, personal discipline, as well as the strengthening of individual and collective prevention measures are the most effective means of halting the spread of this disease in our country and preserving the lives of our fellow citizens. I therefore invite all of us to mobilize in solidarity, especially community relays such as religious and traditional authorities, opinion leaders, political leaders, associations, and trade unions. Let us all observe the directives of the head of state concerning the fight against COVID-19. Let us work together to fight this pandemic that disrupts our social balance and the realization of our development projects. Let us rise and bar the way to the spread of this disease by respecting basic hygiene rules, by systematically wearing a mask in all public places, by respecting social distancing as much as possible, and avoiding popular gatherings. This is a collective requirement, but also, and above all, a civic duty which transcends our personal, religious, or philosophical beliefs. I thank you very much.